Concessions, concessions, concession. Now, this word has become common in migration and visa processing nowadays, which means that the chances to be granted a visa or to facilitate entry to Australia can vary greatly to the concessions that the Department of Immigration is willing to give in response to the negative impact of COVID-19. So hi, my name is Teresa Cardona. I'm a lawyer and registered migration agent from Ausback Visa, where we help Filipino professionals, partners, families, students, graduates, trainees, and our kababayans to migrate to Australia. If you are new here, please click that big subscribe button and all the links I will mention in this video. Now you can find the links in the description below. Okay, so let's jump into it. Today we are going to talk about the recent concessions to some visa holders, and then we're going to clarify the confusion surrounding the new English requirement for partner visa. Now, the changes in the Australian visa policies and procedures nowadays are simply called COVID-19 concessions. So the question is, what are the new concessions? Now, the first concession, if you can still remember, I think I mentioned this in one of my videos in 485, is that international students who are offshore but completed their 2 years of studies in Australia are allowed to apply for and be granted a Subclass 485 while outside of Australia during this concession period. And also, those eligible international students who are outside of Australia are allowed to apply for the Subclass 485 without the usual requirement of holding a student visa within the 6 months window immediately before making an application. And for those applicants who are prevented from returning to Australia because of travel restrictions, bans, closures, etc., you are still be able to meet the Australian study requirement because the eligibility period is extended from 6 months to 12 months. So if you want to know more about this concession, you can go to my other video on Subclass 485. I will put the link in the description below. Now, the second concession is temporary visa holders in 482 or 457 visas who were stood down or those whose working hours were reduced during a pandemic can still apply for permanent resident visa under Subclass 186 Employer Nomination Scheme. Now, if you have completed the 3 years work out of the 4 years employment with the same sponsoring employer, you may still be eligible for Subclass 186 Employer Nomination Scheme. You will not need to start all over again if you're still working for the same employer. Now, the third concession is the onshore grant of Subclass 300 fiancé visa, the Subclass 309, the offshore partner visa, and the 445 dependent child visa. Now, if you lodge a Subclass 300, 309, or 445 visa, you know that those visas can only be granted while you are offshore or outside of Australia. So if you came to Australia on a tourist visa or student visa while your Subclass 309, 300, or 445 is being processed, you will no longer be required to go offshore to get your visa granted, because with this concession that will take effect next year, those visas can be granted while you are onshore. So it's a good news because then you don't need to travel back anymore, and there's no need for you to put extra money in order to buy air ticket to go back home. And then you can continue what you have been doing here. Now, with all those concessions, you will probably ask, is Australia visa processing getting back to normal? Now, that is a hard question to answer, but we certainly see some positive developments. Like, for example, there are quick grants now for onshore partner visa applications, especially for the Subclass 801 permanent visa stage. Now, the processing of citizenship application has become quicker compared to last year, and the face-to-face citizenship ceremonies are back as was before. It was just a virtual ceremony. Now, another development that just happened on Monday was that the borders were open to the first pilot group of 63 students from China, from Hong Kong, from Indonesia, Vietnam, and Japan who arrived in Darwin, Northern Territory. Now, these 63 international students were allowed to enter to Australia to continue their studies. So we will have to see how this develops. Now, the change with partner visa. I think it was last October when I reported to you the changes in the migration plan levels and the introduction of the English language requirement for partner visa applications. So what I'm going to do now is to provide you with some clarity on the English language requirement. So number one is about the question on who is required to satisfy the requirement. Now, the Department of Home Affairs said that the partner visa applicants in the partner stage and the PR sponsor will be required to meet the English language requirement. So this means that the temporary stage partner visa applicants are not required until they reach the second stage, which is the PR processing stage. Now, the level of English required is functional level only. Now, Australian citizens are not required to prove their English ability. Now, the partner visa applicants and their permanent visa sponsor are both required to demonstrate that they have functional English. Question is, what is functional English and how do you prove that you have functional English? Now, your English is functional when it is enough to equip you to do the everyday task. It is the kind of English that you need in different day-to-day situations, like, for example, greeting someone, introducing yourself, asking questions, giving advice, following rules, agreeing or disagreeing, going to the shop to buy something, or maybe to swap or to exchange things, and also to answer the telephone or to tell short stories or even calling the emergency services. Now, how do you prove it? Now, I will mention all of them, all of the evidence that you can put to the immigration to prove that you have the functional English, but you don't need all of them. You only need one out of the list that I am going to explain. Now, you can prove that you have functional level of English if you can show an evidence that, one, you are a citizen of the United Kingdom, the United States of America, Canada, New Zealand, or the Republic of Ireland, and you hold a valid passport issued by any of those countries. Now, another way is you have been assessed as having functional English by the Australian Adult Migrant English Program Service Provider, or you completed a degree or a higher degree or a diploma of trade certificate in an institution in or outside Australia that required at least 2 years of full-time study and all instruction were in English. Or you studied at primary school and at least 3 years of secondary study in a school where English is the medium of instruction. So in the Philippines, what you need is your full elementary records plus the 3 years in high school plus certificate of English as a medium of instruction. So that will be fine. Or at least 5 years of study in the secondary school. So in the case of the Philippines, belonging to the old curriculum, that would be your 4 years in high school and 1 year in college. So you would need to show your report card in high school plus your transcript of records in college that will show that you have completed at least 1 year in college plus certificate of English as a medium of instruction, or at least 1 year of full-time study towards an award. Could be a certificate or maybe certificate 3, certificate 4, or diploma, as long as you study and that study was completed within 1 year. Or you can also get your English tested and must achieve at least 4.5 for IELTS, 32 in TOEFL, and 30 for Pearson, or 147 in Cambridge Advanced Test. And that certificate must be taken in the last 12 months before you applied for the visa. Okay, so take note of that. That certificate must have been taken or must have been issued in the last 12 months before you apply for the visa. Now, if you cannot or do not have any of those things that I mentioned for whatever reason, you can call this as another concession, because with partner visa application, the Department of Home Affairs will also accept anything that will demonstrate and show that you made reasonable efforts to learn English. Now, this will apply to the sponsors of the applicants if they are permanent residents. Now, what does reasonable effort mean? Now, you can demonstrate this through, for example, the completion of 500 hours of free English language classes through the Adult Migrant English Program, the AMEP. Now, although I know that Filipinos won't have a serious problem meeting the functional English requirement, but just in case there's an issue, attending classes in AMEP is a wonderful step to do. And it's a free language tuition as well. Now, on the question of when is the new rule going to be effective or going to be implemented? Now, these rules are proposed to come into effect from the late 2021, so maybe October or November next year. Now, my tips. Now, we certainly welcome all the new developments and concessions, as we hope that there will be more places and quicker processing times, especially for other family visas such as Subclass 461 and other parent visa. But for now, we will do what we can. Now, for international students, now who are planning to study to Australia, you can make your application now and get your visa granted even if the borders are still closed. Now, the universities and schools have introduced several schemes to duplicate the real Australian scenario even if you are in your home country. Now, your desire to study to get an Australian qualification, even though you are unable to travel to Australia, will count more to your GTE. Now, for the partner visa applicants who will apply for the second stage late next year, you may start gathering your documents now to prove your English ability, or start taking the test or attend an English tuition. Now, if the schools where you come from do not certify English as a medium of instruction, and IELTS or any of the English tests is difficult for you, now consider taking up courses and approach the AMEP and enroll in the free program. So I included a link in the description. Now, that's all for today, guys, and please subscribe and share with your friends and your families. You may need some information on Australian visa processing. Okay, see you again next week, and bye.